Looks like we have a good showing today. So, again, my name is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the Voyageurs live stream. So, this event is part of the Boreal Stargazing Week. It's a celebration of Minnesota's dark sky parks, including Voyageurs National Park and the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. This is a rare opportunity to explore our inspiring universe alongside dark sky experts, and we're going to experience the magic of Minnesota's night sky. We are thrilled to be partners with Voyageurs National Park, with Voyageurs Conservancy, and the National Park Foundation, as this is also part of our Crossing America live stream. So thank you to all that have helped us be here today. We want to ask kids, if they have access to it, to make sure you have a journal or paper and a pen or a pencil, because today we're going to learn so much and we want you to capture a little bit of that so that you'll remember it and you can help us solve real world problems. We're going to give you an opportunity, kids, a little bit later in the broadcast to share ideas that you've been working on for quite a while. But before we do that, let's go ahead and just get down to business. We're going to welcome Ranger Mark and Jesse, dark sky expert of the world. Ranger Mark, let's start with you. Just tell us a quick story about yourself.
Sure, sure. Well, it's awesome to be here with all of you and in this amazing setting here called Voyageurs National Park, which is also the traditional lands and waters of the Ojibwe. It is an amazing park, and I have the privilege to be able to serve here as the acting chief of interpretation and education, a whole bunch of other things. But I love wearing this hat because it means that I'm a park ranger, this flat hat, and I get to be out here in this beautiful surrounding that we call Voyageurs. A little bit about Voyageurs, that name actually in French means traveler. And it was the French Canadian voyageurs that used to paddle their canoes up to 3,000 miles from Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, all the way to Grand Portage, Minnesota. And then from there, get in these 26-foot birch bark canoes and paddle all the way up to the northwest corner of the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. Of course, it wasn't called that back then in the 1700s and the 1800s. But from there, they would come back down the same route and they would trade with the Ojibwe and the Cree and other indigenous tribes, trade for beaver pelts mostly, because at the time, it was all the rage in Europe and some of the eastern United States cities to wear beaver hats made out of the inner felt of beavers. And it was the fashion trend at the time. And so this whole area, the waterways that we now call Voyageurs, was filled with that whole fur trade activity during the 1700s and 1800s. So here we are today, being able to be on these same grounds, the same ice, the same lands, the same waters as those French Canadian voyageurs and the indigenous tribes like the Ojibwe. And what an honor it is to be in a place like this that is so special for so many people. And we're glad you're joining us today and making it special in your own lives as well.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to go to the slides for just a moment, and we're going to look at a picture of what we found on the Voyageurs website, a little bit about what these Voyageurs fur trappers would have looked like back in the day. But I also noticed that we are here today because you guys asked me to do something very special. You voted 487 of you voted on what you would like me to do. You had the choice of ice fish, snowshoe, or sing a song. And you overwhelmingly asked me to ice fish. So I want to share with you just a little bit about the story of the ice fishing here. Let me see if I can get the clicker to move forward. There we go. So this was a picture taken yesterday here, right where we are right now, of these frozen lakes. Now, Mark, I'm going to show a video. Can you tell me before I show it, what are those dudes in the yellow coats?
Yes. So what we had at the end of November here at Voyageurs National Park was thin ice rescue training. And so what my fellow park rangers are doing there in those special flotation devices is they're jumping up and down, intentionally trying to get the, the ice to break and so that the rest of our park rangers could essentially practice what it would be like to rescue their fellow rangers or anybody else that might be out on the ice. Sometimes in the beginning of the winter season, at the end of the winter season, the ice can get kind of precarious. It hasn't solidified yet. Typically, midwinter, we'll have 3, maybe even 4 feet thickness of ice. But in the beginning and the end of the season, it can be just a few inches. So we practice those safety techniques to keep our people safe and visitors safe. Now, that said, this particular winter, the weather's been kind of warm, so we do not have that kind of thickness of ice. It is probably a foot at the most in some places at this point in time. So we're continuing to keep those safety precautions going here throughout the park.
So ice fishing for me wasn't possible this time because we wanted to stay safe. And I'm definitely a novice at this, but I do want to show you a few pictures of my catch from last year. So this is me last year on these same ice lakes. You see me with a small little fish there, but then Moss and I got to go to a different type of ice house, which was a tent, and we pulled up this amazing walleye. So although I didn't get to do it this time, I wanted to show you the pictures from last time. Something else you asked me to do was snowshoe. Now, snowshoeing is very popular here, and we have an expert with us that's going to talk a little bit about snowshoes. And I think that Moss is actually going to give us some snowshoes to hold as she talks to us. So, Moss, come on in. Oh, wow.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Thank
Here
you.
you go, Daisha.
Yes.
Jesse. Wow. Well, hi, everybody. I brought out a bunch of different snowshoes. And whew, my name is Moss. I get to be one of the education people here at Voyageurs National Park and explore this beautiful space. And I brought out a few different types of snowshoes to talk about today. Snowshoes are used to help cross spaces where there is a lot of snow. The Ojibwe people, the indigenous people that grew up with this land, learned that when you have big, wide feet, kind of like a snowshoe hare or a lynx, you can float on top of the snow and it's not as hard to step through really deep snow. And I have 3 types of snowshoes that I'll show you today. Over there, Mark has a type of snowshoe that's called the Alaskan style, and it's usually used to cross a really long, big space, kind of like an open lake, like we have behind us. If you needed to cross really far, you could use a snowshoe like that. But if you were trying to get through a place that was maybe a little more brushy, there was trees and branches and bushes and things, and you needed to find your way through that area, this snowshoe that Daisha's holding might be a little bit better for that. It has a point at the top and the bottom. So if you're trying to get through a place that has lots and lots of branches, this point would help you weave through the branches and brush and bushes. And this is a traditional Ojibwe style snowshoe. Jesse has a different type of snowshoe too. This is called a bear paw snowshoe. And those are pretty good for going shorter distances and if there's snow that is really, really deep. You can see that this is probably the widest, the biggest snowshoe around, and it gives you the biggest surface area to float on top of snow. Now, I'm not too much of a snowshoe expert, so maybe some of these snowshoes are used in other scenarios too, but that's what I know about them. And kind of different from these versions, there are these 2 snowshoes that I'm holding, and these are kind of like the snowshoes that we use today. So if I came to your classroom and I brought a bunch of snowshoes, I would probably bring you this kind or this kind. This snowshoe is similar shape as the one that Mark has and kind of similar to the one that Jesse has. It's kind of like a combination of a lot of these snowshoes. And it's kind of called a modern snowshoe. Each of these ones, we just call them a modern snowshoe now. They have spikes on the bottom to help you walk through snow or ice, give you some grip on the ground, and still a lot of space to catch the snow so you walk on top of the snow. There's also this kind, which kind of looks like a crock. It looks a little bit like a crock, and it's made out of foam. And using foam snowshoes is actually pretty special. A lot of people who go outside and look for birds in the wintertime might use foam snowshoes because they're really quiet. they're really quiet snowshoes. And if I'm outside with lots of children, lots of students who are walking around with snowshoes, we can be a lot quieter if we use the foam ones. And you pretty much stick your foot inside, strap it in, just like any other snowshoe, and then walk around. And the back of this foam snowshoe has spikes on it that look a little different from this kind. But really, any type of snowshoe you use will help you stay on top of the snow.
I love that, and I love that Voyageurs National Park is such a great place for recreation. Earlier today, we saw some snowmobiles coming by. We saw people out there walking on the ice lakes. So, Moss, thank you for sharing all of your snowshoe information. We're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
hand these back to
I'll
you
take 'em
now so
back.
you can carry all of
I
them.
think I can. I might come back for yours,
So
Mark.
Dr. Drizzle basically did those two things that you asked, but I'm going to do one more thing because we did promise three things. I'm going to ask my ranger friends here and my conservancy friends, and we're going to do a little throwback to the 80s, I believe. And we're going to do a little song that sort of represents where we are. So it goes like this. Ice, ice, baby. Dun, 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 dun. Do it.
Ice, ice,
baby.
baby.
Dun, 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 dun. I love that. Thank you so much for that. Well, Jesse, now that we've got you laughing and excited, I'm going to pull up a slide for you just a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you do here. So, as you can see, we are talking about dark skies, and it looks like my clicker has frozen. Let's see if I can make that advance. If someone could just hit the enter button for just a moment for me, that would be great. So it is a little cold out here, but not as cold as last time. But Jesse, you have a really great mission here. You work for the Voyageurs Conservancy.
Absolutely.
So what we're seeing on the screen right now are some opportunities that people have had to come and explore this place at night. So what is your mission and what do you do here?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Jesse. I work for the Voyageurs Conservancy. We're the official nonprofit partner for Voyageurs National Park. And so we try to support the park in every way that we can. It's our mission to preserve and to protect. And a big part of my job, I like the dark skies. That's an understatement. I love the dark skies. It's my absolute favorite part of the job. Dark skies are becoming a rarity, not only in this country, but really across the globe. We're seeing this thing called light pollution. It's the invasion of night skies by artificial light. They block out the stars, they erase our curiosity and just our connection. On top of that, it affects animals, it affects the larger ecosystem, it's harmful to humans. So there are numerous reasons why we want to combat light pollution. And Voyageurs National Park, Voyageurs Conservancy, we're all in it together to combat light pollution. Voyageurs National Park is a wonderful place to see the stars. This spot specifically, actually, where we're standing, if it was nighttime, you could imagine a kind of blanket of stars behind us right now. It really is a fantastic thing, and I'm so happy to be part of that mission.
I love that you have that mission because we always talk about when your passion
Yeah.
and your purpose intersects, that's where you should live. And that's where you're living right now. So we know that this is an international dark sky park, but I've noticed around us that there are lights here. So to me, that kind of messes my idea of dark sky. So why are the lights here and how are they aiding in this?
Correct. Yeah, that's a good observation. And so, a big part of our mission in combating light pollution, a thing to recognize that lights on their own are not a bad thing. Lights are very convenient, they serve lots of good purposes in our life. But what we want to do is learn how to use the lights that we have to make them more efficient and to make them more dark sky friendly. So that means thinking about the types of light that you use, using warmer colored bulbs and things like that. And additionally, probably the most simple thing you can do is just face your lights pointing down. If you zoom out later, we can maybe get some shots of the lights that we have here. You'll notice that they are facing down to the ground. That way, we're still using light, but we just put it in the place where it needs to be. Um, so that is why we have lights here. We just try to use it as efficiently as we can.
Well, I love that. And Mark, let's go to you for just a moment because not only are you a ranger here and an interpreter and in charge of education, you're also the monitor of this dark sky designation. So what does that mean?
Sure. So to keep our International Dark Sky certification, every year we have to go out into the park and take what's called sky quality meter readings. And I brought with me today a sample of what that device is. It essentially measures the magnitudes per square arc per second. So it is a device that scientists came up with on a scale of 16 to 22. So if you point this up in the sky at night on a clear night, cloudless, you'll get a reading. And here at Voyageurs, we typically will average between 21 and a quarter to 21 and a half in terms of our average SQM, sky quality meter reading. There's places all over the park, actually about 5, some of them way back in the wilderness, where we'll go by boat and measure the essentially the luminance. Way on the low level, about a 16, that would be in an urban center of a city where the skies are the brightest. But as you approach that number 22, like here at Voyageurs, that signifies some of the darkest skies on the planet. So we're privileged to be able to be here in such a place where we have some of the darkest skies for visitors to come and enjoy. And this sky quality meter reader device helps us maintain that certification and keeps people coming and coming to enjoy the dark skies here at Voyageurs.
So basically, if I get this right, you're educating people about the dark skies and you're making sure they stay dark.
It's all part of it.
I
Yes.
love that. So that's a great partnership between the Conservancy and the National Park Service, that you're working together as a team to provide these opportunities. And we know that there's opportunities to come out to Voyageurs National Park and to snowshoe and to see these beautiful skies. In fact, this week they're talking about how it is really a big deal for the aurora borealis. The northern lights are here. This 2024 is the year for the Northern Lights. So we're really excited about that. So kids, we have been asking you for the last couple months to think about ways that you can help protect dark skies. Now that may mean that you created an infographic or a poster. You may have been inspired by artists that depict the night sky. So you may have done an artistic rendition. You may have decided to create your own light covers for your community so that you can also have dark skies. So I'm going to ask that Miss Zimmerman and my other host on the chat go ahead and find out who is going to share first with us. So we're going to ask you to do it this way. You're going to raise your hand. The hosts are going to find you. They're going to call out your name and ask you to unmute. And then we're going to just tell us your first name and then what is your idea. Teachers, we're not going to get to everybody today, but if you want to make sure that your student gets their idea, you can type it in the chat window. And we'll also have a link at the end of this broadcast where your students can record theirs. So Ms. Zimmerman, I'm going to turn it over to you and let's see what kids around the country are coming up with.
All right, first up, we have Miss Ferguson's class from Columbia, Tennessee. Miss Ferguson, who do you have?
Hey, we are so excited to be here coming to you from Columbia, and we have
Bailey, Miss Sarah.
y'all step forward. So they're going to show you their artwork. They researched several animals, and they're going to read what they learned and how light pollution affects these animals and what they can do to solve the problem. Go ahead, girls.
Here are some facts we have about problems solved by light pollution. Raccoons. Nocturnal animals will feel effects of light pollution significantly. It will alter their behavior significantly. Raccoons will act differently while hunting, and their sleeping patterns will change when they're around light pollution. On to Lucera with some more facts. Owls. Light pollution causes brief functional blindness, a glowing afterimage that affects the ability to see and recognize objects. It can take anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds for vision to readjust. Here's a picture of an owl. Bats. Artificial light falling on or close to a bat's roost can cause many problems for bats.
And how did y'all come up with ways to solve the problems?
We researched
Yeah.
and
What'd you come up with?
you can help them by keeping the light low, mounting the fixture as low as possible,
Okay.
and you can
Anything else?
lower lenses.
Okay.
Glowing lenses are not so they're not visible.
Okay.
I
All
love
right.
that. Thank you. And I'm
Thank
assuming
you.
that my rangers here also see animals that are affected by light pollution, right? So that's probably another reason you guys wanted to make sure this park was a dark sky park, so we could protect these animals. Miss Zimmerman, what else do we have?
I'm not seeing any other hand raising, but we did have some ideas in the chat. We have use lights outdoors only when you need them.
Awesome.
And we also talk about how a lot of lights that are outside at night are pointed up, and we don't need to light the sky. We need those lights to light the ground that we're walking on because it's more of a safety issue. So I love that, thinking about the lights and how you could form those light covers.
And Mrs. Seelock's class, they have a slogan they'd like to share. The dimmer the light, the brighter the night.
I love that. I think that
Great.
that's a t-shirt worthy slogan, and I'd love for them to get that printed out, and we could sell those and just change the world by making all places dark skies.
Absolutely. Miss Ferguson class, your hand's back up. Do you have more, Miss Ferguson?
We have one more, if you don't mind.
That is
All right.
perfect.
This is Evangeline.
So my
You research sea turtles.
I researched sea turtles and how light pollution affects sea turtles.
Okay, what'd you find out?
So I found out how does light pollution affect sea turtles, and what I wrote is how does light pollution affect sea turtles? When sea turtles are born, and how they know how to get to the ocean is you look to the moon because the moon is usually above the ocean. But when they see other lights like beach lights and hotel lights, they go towards that, and they won't survive.
So how can you solve that problem?
How you can solve it is beach lights. You can turn them off at a certain time. And because I know hotels are probably going to be by the beach, you can do tinted windows because people always like to sleep with the light on sometimes.
I love that. And
Good job, Evangeline.
you're talking about sea turtles, which is completely different from where we are now, which just reminds me, we all live under this sky. This is one thing that's very common to all of us. We look different, we talk different, we sound different, we live in different places, but we all live under this. And so if we can work really hard to keep the skies dark when it's nighttime, then we can help the sea turtles down in Florida, and we can help the raccoons and foxes over in Tennessee. Are there any animals here that particularly don't like the light? It's something we didn't talk about earlier, but
Yes, so just as a general rule, nocturnal animals, which we have plenty of nocturnal animals here, they are particularly affected by too much light pollution. Nocturnal animals, for those of you who don't know, are animals that are active at nighttime. So active in the night and typically sleep in the daytime. And with so many lights, it's throwing off their rhythms. When it's supposed to be dark at nighttime, all of a sudden there's all these shining lights and it kind of confuses them. So as a whole, when we see one animal affected, it's actually not just one animal affected. It affects the larger ecosystem.
and I realize that we're talking about animals, but it can also affect humans. I think it's
Absolutely,
something
yeah.
called our circadian rhythms can be knocked off balance when there's too much light. We
Yes.
don't get to sleep. And I think about living in an urban area. So we live in Chicago, and obviously there are lights on all the time there. So I'm thinking when we go back this week, I'm going to talk to my neighborhood and see what we can do to get some of those lights turned down. We want them for safety so that we can see where we're walking. But I'm going to do my part too. I
Great.
can't ask kids to do it, right?
That's right. We all have to do our own individual part, and together it makes a great, effective team.
It does. And just like we are. Miss Zimmerman, I'm just going to see if there's anything else out there, any other students that might want to share or anything from the chat window.
So lots of things in the chat window. Miss Spencer noted that reminded her of hawks and owls that are blinded by cars at night, the headlights of night. They're temporarily blinded for a few seconds. Um, Miss Erin at NPS would like to buy one of those shirts from Miss Seelock's class when you get your dimmer t-shirts made. A
I
lot
love
of
that.
students are saying they'd like to talk to their family and friends about lights at night, educate the people around them.
Absolutely.
So I love that students taking the lead to educate. Miss Simpson says our community lives near nesting sites, and those exact protocols for sea turtles go into place during their nesting months.
I like the connections we're making. I like the idea that we're all, even though we're standing on ice right now, we are learning so much about this whole idea of being under the same sky and how we can protect animals. I was thinking about the dark sky, and I was thinking that there are so many stories that are told about the dark skies. And depending on where you are in the world, the stories might change a little bit. Is there a winter constellation or some type of dark sky constellation story you can share with us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the most kind of popular winter constellations you can think of is none other than famous Orion the Hunter. It's one of the most distinct constellations, in my opinion. He's known for having that really distinct belt of three stars going across. And if you can find Orion's belt and you slowly work at it, you can kind of make out the rest of the shape. The story goes, this is a Greek story. Orion was a great hunter. Some might call him brazen or kind of bold, a little bit arrogant. And he decided to hunt too many animals just to kind of show off to everyone that he was the best. And as a consequence of this, Gaia, the ruler of the earth, was not happy with this kind of arrogant behavior. And as a consequence, was sent out a giant scorpion to battle him. And so Orion the Hunter and the giant scorpion did battle. Scorpio, the giant scorpion, ends up being the champion of the fight. But to honor both of them in this battle, they were both placed up in the night sky, but they are at opposite times of the year. So you'll see Orion up in the winter time, but as the summer or warmer season starts to approach, you'll see Orion retreat and Scorpio begin to appear. So that's one constellation, and like you said, that's one version of a story. But the really cool thing is, if you go to any place on planet Earth, or if you were to go in a time machine and go to any time period on Earth, you'll notice that people have stories about the stars no matter where you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Moss. She was helping us with snowshoes earlier. I'm going to ask her if she will just click play again on our slides. So if you'll do that, Moss. Now, Moss, we're not paying you for this part, okay? This was you did the snowshoes, but now we just need you to click the play button for this. And
Dr.
hopefully
Drizzle, we have a couple of questions in the chat.
we would love to have those. So go ahead.
One is how, let me scroll back, more popped in. How long does it take for the
Yes.
ice to get thick enough? And then to go along with that, Miss Ferguson's class would like to know, how does ice fishing work?
That's
Well,
all you, Mark.
well, there you go. Well, of course, it's all weather dependent in terms of how quickly the ice will form. Now, usually around Thanksgiving time, the end of November, we'll start to get ice on the lakes. It's really not safe to walk on until about 3 inches to 4 inches of ice are formed. And that can typically happen late November, early December. Now, here in Voyageurs National Park, one of the favorite recreational pursuits is snowmobiling, but we won't have ice thick enough for that until a little closer to the end of December, typically, when we've got 5 to 7 inches of ice or so. When we get about 10 inches of ice, maybe right around New Year's, then we can start driving cars on it. And we get 12 inches of ice, maybe a pickup truck. We get 20 inches or more, maybe a pickup truck, along with a fishing ice house trailer that can be pulled behind the truck. And by the time January and February, the heart of winter rolls around, typically we're able to have all kinds of ice fishing happening out on our lakes here with those ice fishing shelters and whatnot. This is a little different this year. We're not seeing any fish houses because it's been such a warm winter. But in a normal winter, you would see ice houses out, temporary shelters, if you will, where people that love to fish go and they bring an auger, this device that will cut a hole through the ice, and then you bring along these short little fishing poles and some maybe live bait like minnows or leeches or worms. Minnows seem to work best, but you drop that bait down through the hole in the ice as you're protected from the wind and the weather in your ice fishing shelter, whether it's a fancy trailer or just kind of a tent looking device. But the goal is to catch fish like walleye and northern pike and smallmouth bass and black crappie and some of these other species of fish that we have here in Voyageurs. So it's a really fun pastime. It's been part of the culture of northern Minnesota and Wisconsin and upper peninsula of Michigan and other places around the country for generations. And we get to enjoy that sort of thing here at Voyageurs when it's a normal winter and it's colder.
So we had some issues this year, like we said, a little bit of, climate change happening. We're warming up a little bit.
Certainly.
We want that to change back though, because people do depend on the livelihood of fishing here in the wintertime. And they also, people depend on putting out their ice houses and renting out their snowmobiles. So this is an economy piece too. It's a challenge here. We want to have a really good cold winter. Now, last year when we were here, it was -1 degrees when we were standing on this ice. And you may remember if you were here that I was bundled from head to toe. And I'm pretty sure that my mouth was frozen at one point. It was so cold that Steve had to get the car mats out of the car and put them on the ground so we wouldn't shiver. Now, today, I'm feeling very frisky and I have my coat off because it is a balmy 18 degrees here. But with this beautiful sun, like we are getting so warmed up. Now, I do remember when you took us ice fishing last year, we were on the ice. You made me roll down the windows and it was freezing and I was not happy with that. Why did we do that?
That's just a safety precaution. When you're traveling on the ice in a vehicle, you want to have your windows down just in case the ice might, break. And if the vehicle was to sink a little bit, you could quickly swim out the window of the vehicle and get safe. So that's simply a safety precaution. If the windows were up, we wouldn't want anybody to be trapped in their vehicles. So
Well, I'm glad you did that then. You were looking out for me and I appreciate that.
most certainly.
Miss Zimmerman, do we have any other questions?
No, don't see many other questions.
Well, that's
Oh,
okay.
you know what? Is there sledding there?
Yes, in fact, we had a sled just a little bit ago that pulled our generator down here to the ice. But I'm sure there is sledding here and snowmobiling and all kinds of fun stuff, right?
Most certainly. Yeah.
This is a hard place to get to. We are in the upper part of Minnesota. Canada is right over there. Like
Just a
right
couple of
over
miles.
there is Canada. But if you can get here, you need to come to Voyageurs National Park. So in the summertime, you have about 4 or 5 months where it's just drop dead gorgeous, beautiful here. We have wolves. Oh, didn't do that very well. Wolves and moose and loons. And what else?
Oh, white-tailed deer, and of course, beaver, right? Some of the highest population of beaver in the lower 48 states, all kinds of mammals.
Bald eagles, beautiful eagles here that hung out with us last year.
Yeah, yeah. Love the eagles, lots of migratory birds, pelicans. You mentioned the loon. That's one of those iconic sounds of the North Woods.
Can you do that?
Oh, I don't know.
Jesse, can you do
Jesse?
the loon sound?
I haven't been practicing lately. I'm a little rusty.
Uh,
So.
Mr. Kraus, would you mind coming on camera for just a moment and giving us the loon sound?
Well, I wasn't prepared, but let's see if I can do that.
All right.
We'll try it with you. Yes, that scared every loon that's around here right now. We're going to go to the slides for just a minute because some of you had some great ideas, but you may not have been able to share those. So this is the flip link that we'd like for you to put into the chat window of my host, if you will drop that in there. If you have ideas, we'd like to see those t-shirt designs, those light cover designs. We would love to see more of those posters with animals and talking about how they're affected by light pollution. Whatever you came up with in design, we would love for you to share that with us because we will turn that right back around and share it with the Voyageurs Conservancy. In fact, one of our leaders in the Voyageurs Conservancy is actually behind the cameras, and every once in a while she's jumping up and down back there because she's loving seeing your faces on here and all of the ideas. So use this link to do that. And then we're also going to share that we have upcoming events. Not only for the Boreal Stargazing Week, there's a couple more events here, but Crossing America has more events. So there's the link for that. Guys, this was pretty fantastic. First of all, we did not freeze to death, which is a plus in any situation. But behind the camera, we have so many people helping. Kendra and Kelly are back there. So it just shows us that when you collaborate, when you come together as a community, you can do good things. You can do hard things, actually. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of our community. We are going to do something kind of silly for the last part of it. We're going to do our ice baby again. So teachers, if it's okay with you, get students standing up quietly, and we're going to do the ice baby. We're going to do it 3 times, but then we're going to also do dark skies baby 3 times so we can marry these things together. So everyone stand up, kind of stretch a little bit. This is going to be a beautiful sound. So ice baby 3 times and then dark skies baby. Are you ready?
We are
ready.
ready.
Want some movement too. Okay?
All right, let's do this.
1, 2, ready, go. Ice,
Ice, ice, baby. It's ice, ice, baby. It's ice, baby.
Now dark skies.
No,
Baby.
second.
Dark skies, baby. Dark skies, baby.
Ice, 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 ice. No, that's definitely.
So on behalf of the National Park Foundation, Crossing America, the Voyageurs Conservancy, the Voyageurs National Park, and this snowmobile that's coming right behind us, do you see it? There it is. We want to thank you for joining us today, and we can't wait to see you at our next event. So have a great day, everyone. Get a big high fiving all of you virtually. Thank you for being here. Thanks to all of our helpers. We are so glad to see you here today, and keep changing the world. And remember, be a good human. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.